Hello, everybody. A very warm welcome to all the viewers present here. Uh, Welcome you all to a brand new episode of Health from Home brought to you by Aditya Birla Health Insurance. I'm Anaga, your host for today. And today we will be discussing a very important topic, and it's about diabetes. We know that a lot of international and national studies have shown that diabetes is one of they have raised alarm on the prevalence of diabetes, and India is considered as the diabetes capital, with not just diabetic population but pre-diabetic population as well. However, the good news here is that a proper understanding of this condition and a disciplined care can help us lead very healthy lives. And to chat with us today, I'm very glad to share with you all that we have an expert with us who can tell us the scientific way of managing this condition. We have Dr. V. Mohan with us. Hello, doctor.
Hello.
Dr. Mohan, I really needs no introduction, how much of a cliche that may sound, but let me just say a few words about Dr. Mohan. He's an eminent diabetologist from India, practicing diabetes for more than 40 years now. Dr. Mohan was awarded the very honored Padma Shri title by the Government of India in 2012 for his contributions in the field. And Dr. Mohan has picked up several awards. I think several awards each year he's been picking up ever since. He has an unbelievable 15-20 research papers contributed on this topic. And Dr. Mohan currently practices in Chennai. He is the chairman and chief of diabetology at Dr. Mohan's Diabetes Specialty Center, which is an IDF center of education. He is also the president and director of Madras Diabetes Research Foundation, which is an ICMR center for advanced research on diabetes. There's something very interesting that Dr. Mohan believes after treating so many diabetic patients. He says that living up to 100 with diabetes, it's not just possible, it's simple. And Dr. Mohan, we know that you have patients who are living healthy life at the age who are well above 95. So let's have a chat with you, Dr. Mohan, and tell us more about this. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
So, sir, I'll straight move to the point. First of all, sir, we would like to know, as a matter of fact, why blood sugar is important. Why do we need to maintain it in a healthy range?
Blood sugar is something which is essential for life. It is like fuel to a car. So if you don't have glucose, our brain can't function, our heart can't function, none of our cells can function. In fact, we'll die. If the sugar goes too low for too long, we will die. It's one of the essential things that whatever food we eat, ultimately, whether it's carbohydrate, protein, fat, it doesn't matter. It all gets converted into glucose. But like everything else in life, there is a moderation, and a certain normal level of blood glucose is what God designed the human being to have. That value may vary from animal to animal, but for human beings, generally in the fasting state, it should be below 100. And below 126 is considered as diabetes. And if you give a glucose load to somebody, a GTT we call as glucose tolerance test, normally it's below 140 after glucose, and above 200 is diabetes. And the one in between is called pre-diabetes. So if you have excess glucose in the blood, it is like the fuel itself flooding the car. And if you have some fuel overload and so on in the car will sputter and stop. So similarly, if you have high blood glucose levels, initially it will lead to symptoms of diabetes, thirst, urination, and all the other symptoms of that, tiredness and wounds which don't heal, and infections and so on. But then in the long term, what it does is that it affects the blood vessels of the body, predominantly anywhere in the body, but the eye, the kidney, the heart, the feet, the nerves. So what happens is that you can go blind, or you can have renal failure or heart attacks, or your leg can get amputated. So these are very serious complications of diabetes. And the main root cause for all this is a high level of glucose in the blood. And that's the reason why we have to keep our glucose levels under control. I'm glad you asked this question, actually, because there are many people who say that with age, glucose levels will go up and it's normal. In fact, I have some doctors who talk this nonsense and thing. There is an age-related increase, no doubt, but it's like 5%. I mean, if we are saying 100 is normal, 105 may be normal for a 70-year-old person. I'm just saying. But if he has 200 at 70, it's high. It's just very high and it has to be brought down. And all these complications, irrespective of age, even a 100-year-old person cannot have an unlimited glucose level. So glucose levels have to be kept under control.
Right. I understand. So thank you so much. You have very simply explained the concept of blood sugar and why it needs to be maintained within a acceptable range. Right. My next question was about pre-diabetes, and I think you've already addressed it, because a lot of population in India is diagnosed as pre-diabetics. I would like to ask you a question on that background, whether diabetes can be reversed.
Yeah.
There are a lot of these diabetes reversal programs which are flooding. So please speak about that.
Yeah. So as you rightly mentioned, let us say there's a normal value here, and then there's a diabetic value there, and beyond that is diabetes, and below this is normal. There's a period in between. As I mentioned, in the fasting state, say it's between 100 milligrams per deciliter to 125 milligrams per deciliter. You may wonder why this 126 was taken. It is 7 millimoles, and 1 millimole is 18 milligrams. And in Europe and in UK, they use millimoles. In India and in US, we still use milligram per deciliter. That's how this 126 came, 18 into 7. So if you have a fasting between 100 and 125, or a glucose, after glucose, a GTT between 140 to 199, that is called pre-diabetes. Now, again, there are two types of pre-diabetes. In the fasting stage, it's called impaired fasting glucose. And in the 2-hour value, it's called impaired glucose tolerance, or IGT. So IFG and IGT are both pre-diabetic. Now, you mentioned reversal of diabetes, and I'm glad you asked that, because today, literally today, I'm glad you asked it. Today, a gentleman came who's got 20 years of diabetes. His kidney is already affected quite badly. He has heart changes. He's already undergone stenting in his heart. He has eye changes. He has neuropathy. He has, impotence. And he's telling me, Doc, can I reverse diabetes? So I said, yeah, you could have if you had come to me 20 years ago. But now after 20 years, if I can keep all your organs safe for another 10, 20 years, I'll be very happy. And this is not the stage to talk about reversal of diabetes. After all, you already undergone a stenting and your eye is affected, kidney is affected, creatinine is high, everything is high. Where is the question of reversal of diabetes? The reason I'm pointing this out is because you mentioned that a lot of people have got into this business. And I have just kind of called them and, like a patient, and asked them, I've got kidney disease. Can you reverse? Oh, yes, we can reverse. So even if I'm in dialysis, you can reverse me. Yes, we can reverse. So, I mean, that's absolutely not true. There are certain types of diabetes with no reversal at all. For example, type 1 diabetes, children, insulin-dependent diabetes. They don't take insulin, they'll die. How can you reverse it? There's no question of reversal. Type 2 diabetes, yes, which is a common form of diabetes. So I have a mantra. So I call it the A, B, C, D, E mantra. Those who have the A, B, C, D can reverse. What is A, B, C, D? A is A1C. If your HbA1c or 3 months control test, and we can talk about that, if that's not very high, that means it's not very severe, you can reverse it. B stands for body weight. You have to have excess body weight. You have to lose something. What will you lose? What you lose is weight. If you're already a thin guy or underweight guy, how are you going to reverse your diabetes? So the more overweight you are, the greater the chances of reversal. C stands for C-peptide. That means you've got enough insulin in your body. If you have enough insulin in your body, somehow you can make it work and reverse it. D stands for duration of diabetes. If your duration of diabetes is not long, like this guy I told you, already finished 20 years. Where's the question of reversal? First 5 years, 8 years, up to 10 years, you can talk about reversal. After that, it gets increasingly difficult. E is the most important. An enthusiastic individual, unless the person is really enthusiastic or motivated, because you really have to go on a very low-calorie diet, not just for a week, 1 month, 2 months, but for years together. So you have to have real motivation, really enthusiastic individual to do that. If you're not in the proper frame of mind, you're not going to continue this. You'll try it for a week and then you'll give it up. So if you have this A, B, C, D, E, you can certainly talk about reversal of diabetes. Many of my patients have reversed their diabetes. We don't make a big show of it. And the reason is that if they put on weight, they'll develop it again. And many of these reversal walas, I call them, they are not even doctors. They're software engineers. They have a program. And with that, they think they can cure the whole world and, all the illnesses of the world they can cure. And that's what they promise. And they extract hefty sums, 1 lakh of rupees or more, and all kinds of products they'll sell to them. And see, their whole idea is they have they've taken money from private equity, and now they have to enroll so many people and make so much of money and then quit. After 3 years, they're gone, and somebody else is taken over. And we are not like that. We'll see these guys after. So many of these people who have gone to these chaps lost some weight due to some drastic measures which are given. No carbohydrate in any form, zero. Something they'll say. And then they'll reverse their diabetes. They're all over social media saying, I reversed. 3 months later, they come back to us with more than the sugar that they had earlier. That they don't come to social media and say, hey guys, I was one of those reversal guys, but look at me now, I'm back. That they'll never ever say, When we don't go and advertise that also, we say, okay, you come back to us like the prodigal son, you've come back, so that's fine. We'll continue to treat you, So you have to be careful. Who should not make false promises. Yeah. I think we should under promise and over deliver.
Right. So am I right if I say that at certain stage, the doctor can assess and tell you if your diabetes
Absolutely.
Can be reversed?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. So that brings me to another question. You mentioned about HbA1c. Could you throw some light on that? What it actually means for a person who's living with diabetes?
Yeah. See, so the blood sugars keep varying from day to day, minute to minute, hour to hour. So now if my blood sugar is normal, I've already had my lunch at, say, 1 o'clock. And now if I check at 5:30 and I say my sugars are normal. Now, if I go and eat something now, in the next 1.5 hours, the sugar will go high. So if I check now, I'll say it's normal. If I check then, I'll say it's not normal. So you need some kind of an average, isn't it? So that average is the HbA1c test. Now, what happens is, what is HbA1c? It's very simple. Hb is hemoglobin. So in the red blood cell, you have hemoglobin. As it floats, as the red blood cell floats in the plasma or the liquid portion of the blood, that plasma contains glucose, and that glucose starts getting coated around the hemoglobin. So if you can, and that takes 3 months, because after 3 months, all the red blood cells are replaced. So if you can measure how much coating has taken place, you know that for the last 3 months, how high the sugar was. I'll give you a very rough example, then it's very easy. Suppose you see a car parked on the road, okay, and you find it's full of dust. There's so much of dust there that you can't even see the glass. It's so much. You can easily say for the last 1 month, I don't think anybody has even touched this car, isn't it? By looking at the dust. Whereas if you find some spots of dust, you may say, well, last 2 days doesn't look like somebody has, wiped this car. But if you find a spotless car, you can say, oh, there's somebody who's looking after this car and there's not a spot of speck of dust on it. Similarly, suppose you could measure that. Perhaps you can say how long the car was standing there because just looking at the dust or the rust. If you keep something out which rusts, with the amount of rust, you can say how long it's been out, isn't it? Something like that, a long-term measure, it measures for 2 to 3 months. So it's useful because this test, HbA1c, correlates best with the complications. If your HbA1c is high, that means 3 months it's been high, your risk of developing eye disease, kidney disease, and the magic figure is 7%. Normal value is 5.6 for a non-diabetic. But for a diabetic person, if it is between 5.6 to 7, we say it's okay, But as it goes higher, 8%, 9, 10, 11, 12, your risk of getting eye, kidney, nerve complication goes up exponentially like that. And after 10, it's almost 100%. That almost 100% risk you have for developing complications.
Right. I'm amazed, sir, how you can bring up the simplest analogies to put forth some complex biological systems. Thank you so much for that. Yes, it makes it very easy for people to understand. And I now perfectly understand what A1C means and why it gives a true picture of where you stand with diabetes. Next question I would like to put to you is something which is very practical. As a person with diabetes, if one wants to know what are carbohydrates, what should I eat? How about eating some sugar-free mithais? We've just finished the Diwali season, and these sugar-free mithais have been surrounding us. Sugar-free ice cream, sugar-free mithais. So, if you could leave a comment on that, it will be helpful.
It's a very important question because carbohydrate is the main bane of India. And it's because we eat too much of carbohydrate, and not just sugar and sweets, which of course we eat a lot. Every festival, every death, every birth, every festival, we have to eat sweets. So that's a different thing. But apart from that, our normal diet, which part of India you belong to, doesn't matter at all. If you're in the north or in the west, you will be eating more of wheat. If you're in the east or in the south or in the northeast, you're probably eating more of rice. It really doesn't matter. Some parts you may be eating ragi, or very few people may be eating millets. They are all carbohydrate. And this carbohydrate, normally if you take about 40%, 45% carbohydrate, it's okay. We take 65%, 70% carbohydrate. And we have clearly shown through cross-section studies, longitudinal studies, and also through randomized clinical trials that it's the excess carbohydrate which is the cause of the excess risk of diabetes in our country. Now, carbohydrate comes, as I told you, through rice or wheat or ragi or millets or oats or whatever you take, bread, or they're all carbohydrate. But apart from that, there are other things to produce carbohydrate. All the sweets and the desserts and whatever contain sugar, they all contain. Apart from that, there are the starchy vegetables, potato and things like that, which are loaded with carbohydrate, starch. So they can also get converted into glucose easily, and they're just like taking rice. So which are the healthy carbohydrates to take? These, I would say, are the bad carbs, the white ones, the maida and the white polished rice and the refined wheat. And so these are the white bread, and these are the refined carbohydrates. The good carbohydrates are those which are coarse cereals. For example, if you have brown rice, not polished, unpolished rice, or whole wheat, or whole millets which are not polished, ragi or other millets which are not polished. If you polish, then it's gone. And even among the vegetables, you have all the green leafy vegetables and beans or cabbage or cauliflower, and all these kind of things have very low in the glycemic index. The higher the carbohydrate or the sweet intake, the higher is the glycemic load. And we compare this with glucose. So glucose is taken as 100, or white bread is taken as 100. So the closer you are to 100, it's like taking glucose with every meal, And so if you take fruits, you mentioned fruits. So if you take some fruits, they are very, very high in glycemic index. So the moment you eat the fruit, your sugar is going to go very high. Jackfruit and very ripe mangoes and things like that, your sugar is going to shoot up when you take that. Whereas if you take apple, for example, or guava or papaya, the sugar won't go up that much. The glycemic index may be 50, 55. This is called as low glycemic index. Between 55 to 70 is high glycemic index. 70 to 100 is high glycemic index. So the lower the glycemic index, the better it is for people with diabetes. Not just for people with diabetes, even for people who want to lose weight or prevent heart disease and so on. We have shown in a very major publication in New England Journal last year that the glycemic index, very high glycemic index of food, is also linked to mortality. You die if you take too much of glycemic load all the time. The death rates are very high. And this is a multi-country study, 21 countries, 150,000 people followed up for 15 years. These are all very definitive studies. So the lower the glycemic index, the lower the carbohydrate, the better. You talked about the artificial sweeteners. So artificial sweeteners, generally, they will not contain sugar, obviously, because they're alternate. So you have stevia, which comes from plants, and then you have aspartame, and there are many others, which Splenda, which is sucralose, levulose. All these are alternatives to sugar. They are much sweeter than sugar, actually. Some of them are 200 times sweeter than table sugar, but they give the taste of the sugar, but they don't actually increase the sugar. So if you put that instead of sugar into your coffee or tea and so on, your sugar won't go up. But whether they can be taken ad lib as much as you want, there is a limit to what you should take. For example, if you make sweets out of them, you have to put a lot of these sweeteners into them. And therefore, there is some view that they may alter the gut microbiota of the healthy gut bacteria and make them into unhealthy bacteria. There is a view regarding this, but in our own trials, we are doing a major trial, not yet finished and not published, but the initial results are encouraging. They're not really so bad. And the other thing is the fear that when it first came, when saccharin came about 40, 50 years ago, there was a small animal study which showed that if you give 2,000 times a human dose to this poor mice, and for, the mice bladder is so, first of all, mice is so small. The bladder of that mice will be like less than your fingertip. In that thing, you give 2,000 times a human dose, anything it will produce cancer because it's very sensitive. So it just becomes cancerous. So when they give 2000 times the saccharin in human dose, they produce cancer in those mice, small mice. And then they said, oh, it's cancerous, cancer. It took 15, 20 years for the FDA to do research and say, no, it doesn't produce cancer. Okay. Not a single human cancer patient has ever been reported in the last 50 years. But by the time the fear has gone into people. And so now they say every artificial sweetener will produce cancer. No artificial sweetener has been shown to have cancer. Now they say every artificial sweetener will produce cancer. There is no evidence for that at all, anywhere. And all the associations, the Indian Association, the European Association, British Association, American Association, International Association, they all say you can take sweetener. Take a little bit, add one drop or one pinch or one tablet into, or one or two, enough, and you take 3 cups of coffee. It's not going to help you if you like that taste. Of course, if you develop a taste without that, and even you just like the taste of coffee as coffee without sugar, nothing like it. Many people enjoy it. If I can tell you a small story, when I got married, in my house where I grew up, my parents, always milk was served with sugar. Okay, I don't know how, just a habit. And so milk with 2 spoons of sugar. You can imagine how sweet it'll be. And so that's how I grew up. And so when I got married, my wife told me, how can you ever take milk with sugar? She had never taken milk with sugar in her life. So I said, how can you ever take milk without sugar? I mean, it's very difficult. So she said, you try it for, 2-3 weeks. After that, you won't touch sugar in milk. So I tried it for a couple of months. Today, I cannot take sugar with milk, or milk with sugar. It sounds like, it looks like some paisam or something. You can't, it's only getting used to the taste, isn't it? So same thing, even coffee, tea and all that, people with diabetes can easily get used to it if you practice it for a few days.
Right. Get it, sir. So now that we have covered a few things about food and diet, I would like to understand from you whether you believe that there is a connection between stress and diabetes, developing diabetes, or 100%. Even a person, once even it is developed.
If you permit me, I'll tell you a story because I think that's more powerful than a theoretical thing. Okay.
Please go ahead.
So a few years ago, many years ago, in fact, an Anglo-Indian lady came to see me. She was I was in the starting stage of my practice. And this lady, I can't forget her because she walked in with, and I can show you how dramatic it would be, 2 big bottles like this, She walked in with 2 big bottles. So first I thought she's a little eccentric. Why is she walking in with these 2 bottles? Because 1 bottle you can understand, 2 bottles, so big, And then I asked her, is something wrong? I mean, you brought water. I said, Doc, that's how thirsty I am. I said, you need that much water? She said, yes. So I said, okay. And so I checked her sugar. It was 700 and something. Okay. No wonder she's feeling so thirsty. So I said, I have to admit you and I have to get your sugars under control. This is dangerous. I better admit you. That's why you're feeling so thirsty. Now I understand your water problem. So I admitted her. And for a week almost, I was giving her, first I started with tablets, didn't work. I gave her insulin, didn't work. Nothing was working. Then but she's getting clinically a little better. After about a week, I said, see, now your sugars are around 400, 350, 400. I'm not able to bring it down. Whatever dose I give, and you're newly diagnosed. So I don't want to load you with too much. I'm a little scared to give you too much. You go home, you look comfortable. You go home and come back and see me after a month. So she went home. After a month, she came, her sugars had become, near normal, and she had dropped her insulin dose. She said, I'm getting low sugars. I said, okay, let's drop the insulin. By her next month, the insulin was off. And she was on tablets. By the next month, the tablets were off. And what you talked about remission and all. So this remission is not new. 30, 40 years ago, I've been seeing all this. So she went into complete remission. Her HbA1c became normal. Her sugar became normal. Sugar is 80, 90 and all that. And she's off everything. And then she said, sheepishly, she came and told me, oh, I eat 4 chocolate bars a day. I said, and your sugar is 80 now? And meanwhile, she made a trip to Singapore. And where she showed all these results, and they said, that's all wrong. You can't have 700 blood sugar. It's all wrong. Lab is wrong. And she laughed. She said, I don't think lab is wrong. I was drinking a lot of water at the time. So she came back and she said, now I'm totally cured, doctor. My sugar is gone. So I said, I want to sit down with you and talk to you. No, I can't understand it. Here I am struggling. I'm giving you insulin. I'm giving you tablets. For a week I'm trying, and the blood sugar never came down below 400. Today you're eating all the chocolates you want. You're off all medicines and sugar won't go up above 80. What's wrong? I mean, I'm missing something somewhere. Then she gave me a big smile. And she said, I couldn't tell you, doctor, at that time. I said, what's it? Tell me the story. I mean, what's wrong? Then she said, no, at that time when I came, I had a problem. I said, what's the problem? No, my husband was having an affair with another lady. And she was working in the customs. And, he had another lady working in the customs. And they were having a serious affair. He told me he's going to leave me. That's the time when I came to you. I said, why didn't you tell me? He said, how can I tell you? You never asked. She said, I said, what? I'll ask you whether you're having a problem with the husband. I mean, you must tell me something. You must give me some clue. She said, no, it's too delicate. I didn't want to tell you. So I said, okay, that's fair enough. So, I mean, this was a shock to me that, a stress, like, she said, I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't doing anything. I was totally out. I was not normal. So I said, okay, so what happened now? Oh, that lady got transferred. She went away to Calcutta. And my husband came back to me. I said, my God, this is something I would not dreamt of in my wildest dreams, that this is, so that was an eye opener for me, that what stress can do to you. It can take it up to a level you've never seen. So today, after that, I started looking. And if somebody's sugar goes 400, 500, ask them, are you under some stress? And then they'll come out. Yeah, I got transferred. I got this. I got that. My child, failed in the exam. Something I got raided. I got this. I got some story will be there, which they're not willing to tell you until you ask them. So now I started probing people and then they come out. So that's what stress does. But then all of us are under stress. I'm sure just now before we started the program, you would have been stressed. I'd have been stressed. But that's not enough. I mean, 5 minutes of stress is not enough to increase your sugar level. Temporarily, you'll feel little. But this is like chronic stress, something that doesn't make you sleep. It's completely, your disequilibrium, your equilibrium is completely gone. Your brain is kind of under, terrific stress. That kind of a thing upsets the hormones completely. And the stress hormones come out, adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol. They all go and attack the insulin. Insulin cannot work. That's when giving insulin is not working at all. Now it started coming down completely normal and she's gone. She's not a diabetic at all. She just had stress-induced diabetes. So stress can produce diabetes. Always think of it. So what is the application of that? Is that you stress reduction routinely. I do, pranayama every single day and a little bit of stretching, a little bit of meditation. 365 days I do it. Even if I miss my walk, I don't miss this because I'm a different animal if I don't do that. I'll get angry and I'll start throwing things in the office. And whereas if I do this and go, I'm calm, totally nothing happens to me. So stress is very, very important cause.
So stress, there is an undeniable connection between stress and diabetes.
But diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, what they show in the movie, some news and they got heart attack. It's not a lie at all. It's not an exaggeration at all. It can happen. Suddenly triggers your hormones and it can produce a heart attack and produce all kinds of things. So.
But like you mentioned, so you do advocate breathing exercises regularly,
100%, 100%. Whether you have diabetes, don't have diabetes, everybody should do it. Yeah. Very important.
With physical exercise. Right. So that is one important point for all the viewers to take home, along with your food, along with your physical exercise. This is also something one should definitely take care of, stress reduction.
I'll tell you one other tip. Apart from the stress, even if you're not under stress, one of the things we've realized very important for people not getting diabetes and to get obesity and all that is sleep. So sleep is very, very important. So we published 2 papers from this pure study. This again 150,000, 15 years, 21 countries, followed up 15 years. So we found what is the sleeping pattern of people and how does it relate to mortality? Ultimately, look at mortality. What do people die of? Not just diabetes, hypertension. What do people die of? We found very interesting. Those who sleep between 6 to 8 hours, they did the best. Now, interestingly enough, if you sleep more than 8 hours, you didn't do so well because there's something wrong with you. If you have to sleep 10, 12 hours a day, either you're hypothyroid or there's something wrong with you, some disease or something which you have to go to a doctor and find out what's wrong with you. If as an adult, you need 10, 12 hours. Similarly, those who sleep less than 6 hours. I know many people boast to me and tell me, oh, I sleep only 4 hours and I'm doing well. Don't fool yourself. Unless you're some kind of superhuman or something, which a few people may be, the average person needs 6 hours sleep minimum. If you don't do that, sleep deprivation will start coming, and slowly, one by one, your organs will start going. Second point about sleep. So the number of hours is very important. Number two, when you sleep is also very important. So we had people who start sleeping from 6 o'clock in the evening, two people who sleep at 3 a.m. In the morning. So from there, we took what is the mortality of these people, because we have it at baseline. And then we see when they died, how they died, and then go back and see when were they sleeping and when. What we found was those who sleep between 10 p.m. and 12 midnight did the best. Okay, with an average around 10:30, 11. If you go beyond midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., even if they slept 6 to 7 hours a day, their circadian rhythm is totally gone. And therefore, they didn't do well. They had increased mortality. Those who slept before 10 o'clock, 9, 8, 7, 6, there's something wrong with you if you're falling asleep at 6 p.m. Excuse me. So they also didn't do very well.
Right. So thank you for that very important tip, sir, because yes, sleep also needs to be disciplined in a disciplined manner. And one should definitely watch your help your body stay in that rhythm, whether it is sleep, whether it is food, whether it's exercise. That's what I understand from this.
There's a subject of chronobiology, and this has become very important today.
Right. Yeah. So that is where all the discipline comes from. The thought of having a disciplined life comes from. One question, sir, it might seem out of place in this conversation flow, but I would want to ask you that if both parents have diabetes, is the child sure to get it? Is that true?
Almost. So if both the parents have diabetes, our own studies have shown, even without all the parents being diabetic, in India, at age 50, 55, almost 55 to 60% of Indians have diabetes. Okay, forget about family history. If you live in a metropolitan city like Mumbai or Chennai or Hyderabad, Delhi, Bangalore, and so on, Calcutta, by age 55, 60, almost 50% of the people have diabetes. Another 25 to 30% have pre-diabetes. So 80% of the population is either diabetic or pre-diabetic by age 55 to 60 years in India. Now, if you have both parents having diabetes, very rarely have I seen anyone who's crossed 50 years of age and not had diabetes. The risk is about 90-95%. Of course, there are always exceptions. In biology, I always say 2 plus 2 is only rarely 4. Unlike mathematics, it can occasionally be 4. Usually it can be 3, it can be 3.5, it can be 4, it can be 4.5, it can be 5 also. In biology, it can go any way. Only in mathematics, in physics and all, you'll get exact science. Biology, there's a lot of variation. That's why even 6 to 8 hours is always a range, So here also the same thing occurs, that if you have both parent diabetic, exceptionally you may escape. Similarly, both parents are not diabetic, exceptionally you may get diabetes. But the risk is very, very high. But there is a good news there also. If both your parents are diabetic and you know that from the beginning, and you did not put on weight, you maintained your body weight, you exercised, you slept on time, you cut down your carbohydrate, you may prevent diabetes by 20, 30 years. You may say, what's the point? Anyway, 20, 30 years, whether I postpone it or not, what does it matter? Think again. If you get diabetes when you're, say, 20 years old, which is what you may get if both your parents are diabetic, you may get it 15, 20, 25 years. You need only 20 years to develop the complication diabetes. That itself is stretching it a bit. It's much shorter than that. Let's put it as 20 years. So say at 20, you got diabetes, and add another 20, you're now 40. Okay. At 40, if you go blind, or you need dialysis, or you had a heart attack and you need bypass or stenting, or you have a chance of losing your leg, neuropathy, or you become impotent at 40. Okay. Where are you? What is your quality of life after that? Okay. Now fast forward. You have taken all the precautions, and now up to 50 years of age, you have not got the diabetes. But because of the genes at 50, you finally got it. Add another 20 years to that to get complicated. First of all, as you get older, it's milder. Okay. So the chance of getting complications much, much less than if you get it at a young age. Young is more aggressive. Or even cancers are like that. You get it at young age. Premenopausal cancer and postmenopausal cancer is very different. Postmenopausal breast cancer, people live. Whereas you get it in 2030, the cancer is very aggressive. Similarly, diabetes, the younger it is, more aggressive. So if you get it at 50, it won't be 20 years when you get it, maybe 30 years. Okay, by the time you're 80, India's lifespan is only 69 years for men and 71 years for women today, people without diabetes. But as you rightly said, we have shown that people with diabetes can live 90, 95, even 100 years of age. These are people who might have had family history, may not have had family history. They didn't get diabetes when they're 85. They got it when they're 40. Okay. And 50, 60 years, they manage their diabetes very well. And they don't have any complication. They're doing very well. At 90, 95, they're writing books. Okay. They're giving speeches. Their faculty is absolutely good. No memory loss, no Alzheimer's. They're walking and coming. When you had a function, they all came, took part. One lady who is a doctor, anatomy, lady, she started singing. So I gave her the mic. She said, "Mic? I don't need a mic. I can sing with her." And loud voice, she's singing at the age of 95, So these are all, people who are extraordinary success stories, who tell us that diabetes is not, in fact, my father used to say, he was the first diabetes specialist of India, he used to say, and I used to argue with him when I was young, when I joined him at 18 to work on diabetes. So he used to say, "Mohan, if you have a little diabetes, it is good, you can actually live longer than people without diabetes." I said, "Come on, all this rhetoric and all that, I know. Don't pull this on me. I know what miserable lives people with diabetes have." And you say, no, a controlled diabetic is better than a non-diabetic," used to say. Today, no, it's true, because they go for their checkup, they're careful about diet, they sleep on time, they don't overdo anything, they exercise, they do pranayama, they do yoga, they go for their checkup, they're looking after the sugar, blood pressure, cholesterol, everything they're going for, annual checkups they go for, everything they do. And therefore, whereas person, I'm not diabetic, why should I go for checkup? Simply going to the doctor. So you actually neglect your health. And many of my people without diabetes actually doing worse than people with diabetes. So if you look after your diabetes well, you can definitely have a long and healthy life despite that.
Right. Thank you so much for all those insights. I think this brings us to the end of this session. And my last suggestion to you was to give as a most senior diabetologist of this country, I would want you to address the population here and give them that one last piece of advice. I think you've said a lot already, but is there any one last piece of advice that you would like to
give? Yeah. So World Diabetes Day is on November 14th, and it's celebrated all over the world because Frederick Banting's birthday, the man who discovered insulin, for which he got the Nobel Prize, his birthday is November 14th. So on World Diabetes Day, we always reach out to people with a message. And my message is 2 or 3 simple messages. The first thing is, if you don't have diabetes today, don't think you will never get it. You have a chance of getting it. Being an Indian itself is a risk factor, but you can prevent it by leading a healthy life. If you already got diabetes, don't worry. I just told you that you can live up to 100 years of age without any complication. It was not a rhetoric. It was not something I was just making up. These are published studies. So you can also join that band of people who at 100 who will still be very healthy. You can have a long and healthy life. So that brings me to a declaration which, or my ambition, which I stated last year for World Diabetes Day. So people ask me, can you ever think of an India without any diabetes? I said it's difficult because 2000 years ago, Shushrutan Charaka had already described diabetes. Okay. And now, if at all, with increasing lifespan, age is a non-modifiable risk factor. So therefore, as you grow older, all of us will get a little diabetes. It doesn't matter. But what I can dream of is not a diabetes-free India, but a diabetes complications-free India, which means that people may have diabetes, but nobody should go blind in India due to diabetes. Nobody should have kidney failure due to diabetes, which means half the nephrologists won't have a job because 50% of their dialysis and transplantation is due to diabetes. Third, there should be no heart attacks due to diabetes. Heart attack will come due to something else, smoking or stress or something, which also you can try to reduce. But due to diabetes, nobody should get a heart attack. There should not be, today the commonest cause of amputation other than trauma, accidents, is diabetes. Let the trauma also come down by wearing seat belts or helmet or whatever, but there should be no diabetes related amputation. Nobody should go impotent because of diabetes. If we are able to get that, that means if I am able to say that in my country, diabetes is there, but nobody suffers due to diabetes, it's just like a part of life. They just take it, they look after themselves, and they're doing well, and they can live up to 100 without any complications.
Sure.
That will be my dream, and that will be my message to everybody with diabetes. Let us all try, let's all work together, because for that, all of us have to work together. I know that, Aditya Birla, you are having these programs to make your people healthier. There's a lot of people will be having diabetes there. Let's reach out to all of them and say, take a positive attitude, live a healthy life, and let us produce. For example, in your organization, there should not be a single person with complication. Charity starts at home. So you start with your organization. So every organization, let us spread this message.
Yeah. So thank you so much, sir. That brings us to the end of this session. We leave all the viewers with a very positive message here. There's no need to fear diabetes. Even if one has diabetes, very well, you can very well manage it, control it, and lead a healthy life. Like I have said in the beginning of this session, Dr. Mohan has patients who are living for well above 1995 and are leading a healthy life. And with all these tips, manage your diabetes well. Thank you all for joining us. And thank you, Dr. Mohan, for sharing your expertise for all the viewers here. For all of you watching us, we'll be back with another Health from Home session brought to you by Aditya Birla Health Insurance. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Anaga, and thank you, Aditya Birla. Bye-bye. Thank you.